As we're talking during the break off air, Morgan Streetman is reminding me that I can't get lulled into the news cycle that everybody else gets, where you read the story when it's hot and then you don't read the follow-up articles.
Yeah.
That's what's happened with this Epstein stuff, because I've read about half of it and then more trickles out.
Well, all these little facts are so interesting. I mean, here's a fact that we talked about, right as soon as we went to break that we wanted to tell you. And then we've got another fact we've got to tell you. But this first fact that we have heard now, I wonder myself exactly how these reports got out, but there's a bunch of news media that is reporting that on the morning of Epstein's suicide, screams and other sounds were heard coming from his cell. So I don't know if you heard that, Pat
I did
George.
Hear it.
Yeah, that there was screaming coming from his cell.
Wow. No,
Yeah,
not at all.
Now again, I'm not exactly sure how those news reports would have been gotten, but you would imagine if there was screaming that it would have been heard in some of the surrounding cells. I mean, these things are not, soundproof or anything. Now, they are concrete, but, so probably a couple or 3-4 cells around him would have heard it if he was screaming what we like to say, bloody murder. But now here's the last fact that we'll tell you for right now about Epstein, and we do have a few other things we want to get to. But this last fact that we wanted to share with you is, if you remember his girlfriend / madam / she was almost like a pimp.
Maxine.
And that's... Yeah, Maxwell. That's Ghislaine Maxwell. And I'm learning, I don't think the S is now pronounced. I've seen it's either Ghislaine or Ghislaine, and I'm going with Ghislaine. But anyway, that's her name, Ghislaine Maxwell. She was spotted allegedly at an In-N-Out Burger in California reading a book about the lives and deaths of CIA officers.
And I saw that photo.
You saw that photo. Mm-hmm. Now, what's weird about that photo is there's she was obviously at the In-N-Out Burger. I mean, the photo's staged. We'll just put it that way, because she was obviously at the In-N-Out Burger for a long period of time, because all of the people that are eating around her, if you look at the various different photos that are taken, there's changes. Those people change. And so she's obviously sitting there through a couple of meals, and she's reading this book about the lives and deaths of CIA officers. And, you're telling me, she hasn't been seen in public in 3 years, allegedly, and you're telling me she just happens to be right in the middle of that book when she shows up there? No. I personally think that's a message. I don't know what message it is exactly, but I think that's some kind of a message. Now, here's where it gets even stranger. And this I got onto over the weekend, where it gets even weirder, is that apparently those photographs were photoshopped, is what they're saying, because and you're just going, what the heck? Because it's apparently they may have been taken up to a month ago. It's unclear exactly when they were taken, but they don't appear to necessarily have been current as of last week, which is the way it was portrayed in the news. And there are billboards in the background of those photographs that, according to what I'm reading, may have been photoshopped, which is just mind-blowing. So they actually changed some of the billboards to reflect different advertisements, and it's been, reporters apparently have gone out to that In-N-Out Burger and looked around and seen, wait a minute, that's not the same billboard from the photo just last week. Mm-hmm. And so they've contacted the advertising companies and said, hey, did you have this kind of ad on that billboard? And they said, no, we have no record of that. And so what in the heck fire is going on? It's just a strange confluence of events and facts that continue to develop around this story.
What about the stories of letters being posted to different places, and if anything happened to me,
sure,
those would come out?
The Deadman Switches, right? And that's we talked some about that in our very truncated out there segment last week, which is that you think about it. Okay, well, they had Epstein killed. Well, if Epstein really was this high-level blackmail guy, if he was smart, he would have put some of that information with people around the world and said, look, if anything ever happens to me, you mail this to the New York Times or some other press outlet. Mm-hmm. Make sure this gets out in the public knowledge. And then you tell the people that you're blackmailing, look, you don't have the option to just kill me. I know you're really angry with me and everything else, but the best thing you could do right now is just pay me, because if you kill me, then all you're going to do is be sure that this stuff is going to come out, because I have secret agents all around the world who are prepared to release this, if anything happens to me. And so that would be a reason, because we talked, like I said, in the out there that, the body that was kind of shown as being Epstein's body, there were some issues with, there were parts of it that, don't match up exactly with maybe the way that Epstein looked, that being the ear and the nose and the brow line, but Could it be that they went in and yanked him out of there, substituted a dead body of somebody who looked very much like him, because that might have kept him from activating his Deadman switches.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of one of those threads that, it's pure speculation, right, based on what we can reason through. But, it's an interesting thought. We'll just put it that way. I, of course, don't know what happened here. I mean, there's certainly within the realm of possibility that, he was suicided. That's what we all expected, and that's what seems to make some of the most sense. And it's also within the realm of possibility that he did kill himself, although I think that's kind of the least likely scenario that we've talked about. We've heard that he was very excited about his defense. He just paid his lawyers a bunch of money to file some motions that, in his mind he was going to win. He told his lawyers on Friday, hey, see you guys Sunday, and then very, very early Saturday morning, he allegedly commits suicide. So,
did you also hear he does have some writings that they're going to look into, like he had diaries, I believe, in his St. Thomas house?
Well, we don't know what they found because the FBI last week raided his island, Pedo Island. And, of course, I'm shaking my head, and I'm like, guys, what took you so long? I mean, he was arrested, 40-something days ago, right? Why wouldn't you be down there the day he was arrested and raid that place? I mean, there are photos that you can find that computers were removed from that island because you could see the before photos where the computers are there, and then the after photos when the FBI shows up and the computers are gone. So somebody already removed a bunch of computers from the island. If you remember, about a week after he got arrested, there was a big fire on the island. You remember that? I mean, there's a big fire. Now, what was burned up in that fire? Who knows? How about this? But now we're going to end up spending the whole show on this. Mm-hmm. How about this? A few months before that story came out in the Miami Herald, which was like last November, which is kind of what reignited the public interest in the Epstein matter. But about 2 months before that, he paid for a giant concrete mixing truck to be taken down to his island. Now, that is not a cheap prospect, right? To put a big... Now, what in the world's he using that concrete mixing truck for? And by the way, he paid extra to get it there super fast, which means he felt there was some time pressure. Now, what's he do? Is he sealing up tunnels? Is he burying things in concrete? Who knows? Is he putting concrete? I mean, you don't even... We could speculate about all kinds of things. They talk about bones being found on the island and things like that. I mean, God forbid that's what was going on there. But, it does kind of seem like it had some of those elements to it. So why did he have to pay extra and took all the risk if this concrete mixer sunk because they weren't willing to ship it to him where they keep the risk? You know how shipping works, where somebody has to take the risk of loss in transit, and there's all these terms for that. It's under what's called the Uniform Commercial Code, the UCC. So it's very confusing to anybody who doesn't do shipping and receiving or import-export, because all these little terms you have to know about. Like FOB, freight on board, and things like that. You probably never even heard that, but these are terms that indicate who's got the liability if the item is lost in transit. And it could be either the seller can be responsible for getting it all the way to the buyer's front door, or the buyer can actually take responsibility, like from when it leaves the seller's warehouse, and many variations there in between. But in this particular instance, because he was needing to get it down there so quickly and he had to pay some extra, he actually had to take the risk of loss on that. So there's another fact that just tells you, something is not right about what was going on this island, which we already basically know. But, how many dimensions and how many facts do we not know?
One thing is guaranteed, though. Bigger stories in history have been covered up bigger than this. Sure. So we can guarantee that anything is possible.
And along the lines of cover-up, whenever you have someone who has all that money and who is plugged in with all of those powerful people, a lot is at stake. And that's what doesn't smell right about this. That's what doesn't make sense.
Right. Well, so many angles to that story. I mean, that's one that I think we're going to keep hearing about. It's funny. I saw some interviews with Donald Trump going back to 2015, and he was talking about Bill Clinton's problems with regard to Jeffrey Epstein and that pedo island that he went to. So, I mean, this story is known about among the power elite. And it's known what was going on with Epstein and, to a degree, who was involved with Epstein.
And it's sad that all these girls who were abused, their story is, they're probably just horrified by it. But that almost is under the radar
Right.
because you have all this other stuff going on.
Right.
And they need to be recognized.
Right. Well, all kinds of places we go. You should see the picture of Prince Andrew going to church with the Queen,
I saw that.
which is like a day after his good buddy.
Nothing to see here.
No, big smile. Ghislaine Maxwell wasn't crying at the In-N-Out Burger. I mean, by the way, nobody's crying over Bill Clinton and Hillary were seen and they're smiling, Saturday morning. I mean, nobody's crying over this guy. Nobody's like, man, he was a good man. I'm so sorry we don't have Jeff Epstein around anymore.
Nobody's come out and said, yeah, he was my buddy.
People just ran for the hills, didn't they? I mean, it tells you something when you live that kind of life, that really, even the people that you think are your friends, they're not even your friends.
Did they ever take and announce who took control of the body?
Well, no, they didn't. They said it was an Epstein associate, right?
That's all I ever heard.
That's all I ever heard. They've never said who took the body, right?
Who was the associate?
Because, whoever got the body might have recognized immediately, hey, this is not, it looks like Jeff, sort of, but it's not Jeff.
But I'm not going to ask any questions.
But I ain't saying anything because I don't want to also commit suicide,
Did he have any family?
Apparently not, that we know of. Apparently not.
He's just a party guy.
What a way to spend your life. And of course, you spend your life like that, and that's another thing. Why would you commit suicide? I mean, either if you're a religious person and you believe that there's some kind of accounting at the end of life for good deeds, bad deeds, whatever, and that's most religions have some form of that type of belief, then would you really be rushing off to that meeting with God after you lived a life like that? I think I'd be putting that off as long as possible, right? I wouldn't be committing suicide because prison's better than what you're going to run into when you got to go talk to God about what you've done. But if you're not a religious person, as I think every indication was that Jeffrey Epstein was not a religious person, and you believe that human beings are like a light switch, and when you die, you just flip the light switch off, and there's no hereafter, there's nothing to be dealt with about what's happened on this earth, and again, that's every indication is that's what Epstein believed, then why would you commit suicide? Because you're flipping your own light switch off. All you're ever going to get is the time that you got here, so why cut it short? Thank you for listening to the Morgan Streetman Show. We hope you enjoyed what you heard, and if you did, please click like and subscribe to help us out. And remember that we recommend that you exercise your brain at least once a week.